I got a story to share before we get into the passage and kind of everything that I want to cover tonight. But whenever I first met my college baseball coach, I knew that he was going to be an awesome guy. He was going to be a great guy. Literally from the first interaction I had with him. Now, he kind of had this swagger about him. I really don't know how to describe it. It's like the stereotypical college baseball coach about him where, you know, he has a group of 30, 18 to 20-year-old college athletes. You really never know what's going to happen. And so he kind of had to have this sort of attitude about him, making sure we're going the right direction, doing the right thing, all that good stuff. Well, one of my fondest memories, and I use fondest as a sarcastic term, because he would make us do this thing he called perfect in and out. Now, for you baseball guys, if you know what it is, I won't bore everyone else by what it is, but essentially he is hitting us ground balls, hitting fly balls. We have to throw it around the field a little bit, and we have to do it perfect. Now, you may be asking yourself, man, shouldn't that be easy, right? Just fielding a ground ball, throwing it across, that's easy. Well, whenever I tell you that there were times it took 2+ hours to complete this perfect in and out, it was not fun. It was not easy. So I see that side of coach, right? It's awesome. And so in the middle of all of our imperfections and all of our mistakes, there's a lot of yelling. There's a lot of, hey, go run these sprints. I'm a catcher, and so I sort of catch everything that he says under his breath because I'm literally standing right beside him. And so in those moments, I'm questioning, man, is this guy a really good guy, or what's going on with this guy? Now, we all knew that side of coach, the coach. He was a good guy, I promise. He was a good guy. But then one day, his wife shows up to practice. And when I tell you, this man became a complete stranger to us, started smiling, started laughing, started joking around. His wife is making fun of him. He's blushing. We knew coach, but as you can tell, we loved husband coach, right? Whenever Miss Joy came around, we loved that. Now, the thing is, we saw a completely different side of coach. We have seen perfect in and out coach and husband coach. He's laughing, he's smiling, right? He's almost a completely different person. And I believe that knowing that side of coach made us love him even more. Getting to understand him as coach, and then adding on top of, man, this guy actually knows how to have fun. Man, we enjoyed coach. We enjoyed being around him, playing for him even more because we knew this coach and we knew fun coach. Now, here's my point. I believe that most of us, at times in our life, we only follow or look at Jesus with one aspect. We only see him as friend, as the one who accepts us, the one who we can go to and cry on his shoulder and receive his love and grace, right? And all those things are true about Jesus, right? But that's not all of who Jesus is. We have to see that Jesus is more than that, because Jesus is not just a friend. He is also Lord. Now, what do I mean that Jesus is Lord? What is his lordship? Well, to declare that Jesus is Lord is an absolute essential foundation of our faith. It is foundational to our salvation. To declare him Lord over your life is to say that he has full control, that you have surrendered everything to him. It says in Romans chapter 10, verse 9, it says, if you openly declare that Jesus is Lord and believe in your heart that God raised him from the dead, that you will be saved. And so this is a foundational statement whenever it comes to salvation, the gift of salvation that God has sent for the world. Now, to be honest with you, if I was sitting in the seat that you were sitting in and I'm hearing this guy up here on the stage telling me and almost questioning if I have made Jesus Lord of my life, I would be like, yes, I have. I am leading. I'm letting Jesus lead my life. Man, I am doing that. Jesus is Lord of my life. So whenever I first started driving, learning how to drive, I remember sitting in my dad's red F-150. It was a single cab, and it was a great truck. It's probably still running to this day. I have no idea. He sold it. Anyhow, I was learning how to drive, and so I remember our drive from the house to the church that my dad was serving at the time was only about 2 or 3 minutes. And so he would let me drive occasionally, especially when I got 15, I'm a permit, right? I'm learning how to drive, that sort of thing. And so we get in the car, and I just remember my dad sitting there in the seat, and he's almost just has his arm locked and loaded right here. And he's afraid that I'm gonna swerve off the road or do something crazy, right? And so he's just sitting here just anticipating if he just feels any sort of movement to the left or he's there. Now I don't know if that's safe or not, but that's what he did. But he's literally locked and loaded. He's not leaned back oh man, I'm so glad my son can drive me around now. I'm gonna sit back, relax. No, he is right here, ready to take the wheel at any moment. Now, my dad is 54 years old. And so whenever I say this, I'm not meaning it literally, but I think we are often a lot like my dad. We like the idea, follow me on this, we like the idea that Jesus is driving. We like the companionship of being in the car, the friendship of being in the car together, listening to the music with the windows down, right? Just hanging out, vibing out in the car. But as soon as we feel Jesus swerving, we're like, hey, Jesus, whoa, hey, what are you doing? Whenever Jesus is trying to change the plans that we have in life, hey, Jesus, hey, get back on the road. Whenever Jesus is trying to tell us how to do relationships, how to date well, how to be married, how to be engaged well, hey, Jesus, hey, I promise I have self-control. Hey, I got this, Jesus. I mean, we're always there anticipating that. But if Jesus is Lord and he is Lord, and that is not a truth that we can argue with, if he is Lord, that changes everything. I mean, if Jesus is Lord, then that changes everything. And so I think oftentimes surrendering to Jesus feels like a loss, like we just lost. Man, I have to give up control. Man, that sounds awful. But I think it's quite the opposite. I think it's freedom to give up that control. And so tonight I want to invite you. This is my invitation for the entire night. I'm going to come back to this at the end, but I'm going to start with the invitation. I want to invite you to be open to surrendering to Jesus as your Lord, to letting him have full control of your life. Tonight we're going to be in Matthew chapter 14. If you have your Bibles, you can go ahead and flip over there. I love hearing the sound of pages turning and physical Bibles. If you don't have your physical Bibles, that is okay. I know you guys are all young adults, and so physical Bibles are at a loss. But I love physical Bibles. I love physical Bibles. And so to give context to where we are in this passage, chapter 14 is a pretty heavy passage. If you look in verse 1, you'll see that this Roman emperor asked this girl, hey, what do you want for your birthday? Literally, it's crazy. And this girl is like, I want John the Baptist's head on a platter. Morbid, that's weird, that's crazy. But literally, chapter 14 in Matthew opens up with John's head being given to this girl on a platter for her birthday. Weird. Now, here's the thing about John the Baptist. John the Baptist was one of Jesus's really, really good friends. And so the chapter goes on to say that Jesus is trying to go off and process everything. He's trying to have this moment of isolation where he can pray and have this time with his Father. But there are crowds, thankfully, there are crowds following him, trying to hear his teachings, maybe even trying to get a miracle or something. so all these crowds are following him, and then this is where we get the feeding of the 5,000, right? The 2 fish, the 5 loaves, right? The story goes on to say that there are 12 baskets left over, and so the disciples gather them up, and then we find in verse 22 that Jesus puts his disciples in a boat. He commands them to go get in this boat and to cross the lake to the other side. Crazy. And the reason he did this, he was like, hey guys, you guys go ahead and go across. I'm going to stay back, and I'm finally going to have my time with Jesus, right? Jesus has boundaries. He knows when he should be hanging out with people, when he shouldn't be hanging out with people. That's just a side note. That's not even in my notes. Jesus is trying to just spend time with Jesus, have a moment alone. And so if you know the story, the disciples are out there rowing, the storm comes in, they're not getting anywhere. Man, they're like, it's literally 3 a.m. The scripture says it's anywhere between 3 and 6 a.m. And so they're tired, they're soaking wet, they don't know what to do. They're out there, and all of a sudden they think they see a ghost on the water, which is crazy. Now, I don't have time to get into what it means that they actually saw a ghost, but there was like some cultural things that, anyhow, they thought they saw a ghost. But we know, because we have the full story in front of us, that it was Jesus walking on water toward them. And he says this in verse 27. But immediately Jesus spoke to them, saying, take heart, it is I. Do not be afraid. So to continue in the story, it says in Matthew chapter 14, verses 28 through 33, this is what it says. And Peter answered him, Lord, if it is you, command me to come to you on the water. And he said, come. So Peter got out of the boat and walked on the water and came to Jesus. But when he saw the wind, he was afraid. And beginning to sink, he cried out, Lord, save me. Jesus immediately reached out his hand and took hold of him, saying to him, O you of little faith, why did you doubt? And when they got into the boat, the wind ceased, and those in the boat worshiped him, saying, truly, you are the Son of God. So for the rest of our time together, I want to walk through this passage. I want to have this statement in mind. If Jesus is Lord, then I will. Then we'll fill in the blanks after that. Because if Jesus is Lord, that changes everything. So to read again, I'm going to read Matthew 14, verses 28 and 29. We'll get into the rest of the passage. To remind us, Peter answered him, Lord, if it is you, command me to come to you on the water. And he said, come. So Peter got out of the boat and walked on the water and came to Jesus. Here's the first statement I want you to write down. If Jesus is Lord, I will step out in faith. If Jesus is Lord, I will step out in faith. And so Peter sees Jesus, and he's walking on water. And Peter doesn't just sit there. He doesn't just watch him. Peter asks him, hey, can I come out there and walk on water with you? Now, there's something interesting here that I want us to catch, because this isn't just a moment in time where Peter's like, hey, guys, look at me. John, Judas, hey, guys, I got this one. I'm going to walk on water this time. No, Peter's not like, hey, I'm going to do something no human being has ever done before. I'm going to go walk on water. In Jewish discipleship culture, asking to do what your rabbi does is a very serious act of identification. And so Peter isn't having this, hey, look at me type of moment. He is asking to be who Jesus is. He is asking Jesus to form him into who Jesus is. And so this is a huge moment for Peter. This is huge, that he wants to be like Jesus. And Jesus just simply says, hey, come on, come. But what about the other 11? The text doesn't say that they get out of the boat, that they follow Peter along, right? We could imply that they just stay there. And I don't think they stay in the boat because they're cowards. but because the boat made sense, right? They were comfortable there. It was familiar. Even in a storm, it was familiar because if you remember, half of the disciples were fishermen, so they've probably been in a storm like this before, thinking that they could get through it. So they're just there in the boat. But listen, comfort zones are called comfort zones because you are comfortable in them. And so whenever things feel chaotic, we often tend to stay in what is comfortable. But if Jesus is your Lord, you will step out in faith. My daughter, Annie, she's almost 2. She'll be 2 in August, and we play this game together. It's a great game. She gets on the couch, and she jumps into my arms, right? All you guys can say, "Oh, it is so sweet." But I'm convinced of one rule that we have. I'm convinced of this, that she will not jump until I say 3, 2, 1, jump. And then she jumps. I'm convinced that she would stay on that couch until she got tired of being up there if I didn't say that. If I was like, "Come on, hey, come on, come on." She wants me to say, "Jump." Now, I want us to notice this. Peter does not step out of the boat because he is brave. It's because Jesus told him to come. Peter's faith is not in his courage. It is in Jesus' word. So if Jesus is Lord, then I believe that his word is strong enough to move you. This is what verse 30 says to continue in the story. It says, "But when he saw the wind, he was afraid, and he began to sink, and he cried out, 'Lord, save me.'" This is the second statement I want us to write down to remember. If Jesus is Lord, I will keep my eyes on him. And so I don't want to skip over the fact that Peter literally does something that no human being has ever done before, walking on water, right? The disciples thought they saw a ghost, but what Peter was doing here was like actually supernatural. He is walking on water. And so we get to verse 30 and we have a really big but. That was supposed to be a joke and you laugh, but it didn't land, I guess. But but check this out. His attention, it shifted. He noticed the wind, the circumstances around him, right? And check this, hey, listen. He started to sink the moment the wind became bigger than Jesus' word. That's what happened. And so for most people, they want to celebrate that Peter walked on water, that he has this faith to step out and to walk on water. Well, I don't know if this is a hot take, but I want to celebrate that Peter started to sink. I want to celebrate that Peter actually lost focus, because you know what that tells me? That he was a human being. And it is affirming to me, hey, Peter, the one that Jesus says he's going to build the church on, it fails at times. Man, thank God that Peter is not God. Thank God I am not God. I mean, I'm a terrible God. Whenever I'm in control of my life, then things go wrong. I get anxious. I overcommit. I'm just being honest with you guys. I don't have very good boundaries. I don't know about you guys, but man, there are things that whenever we start to control our life, man, things start to happen that aren't necessarily good. My attention, it wanders. Man, I'm so glad that God is God, that Jesus is Lord. Peter begins to sink the moment the wind becomes bigger than Jesus' word. Have you guys ever lost your sunglasses? And I say lost like this because you don't really lose them. They're just like on your head the entire time. Anybody ever done that or just me? Okay, literally one person back there. That's all I need. But you guys know people, right? You guys know people who lose their sunglasses, right? Now here's the thing. You didn't lose your sunglasses. You just forgot where they were. And I think there are plenty of times that we can remember in our lives where we look back at a tough situation and we're like, man, that was really hard. Man, where was Jesus? Well, here's the truth. Jesus was there. You just forgot where he was. We don't lose Jesus. Our attention just wanders. It shifts. It moves. Peter, whenever he cries out, "Lord, save me," he didn't use the term rabbi or teacher. He uses through translation and through how the Old Testament uses God's name, he used the name Yahweh. And so Peter is recognizing Jesus is Lord. He's sinking. He's drowning. And he has this moment of realization that Jesus is Lord. So we're talking about a storm here. We're talking about Jesus walking on water, but I have to ask this question because we're here. What if the storm that you're in right now isn't meant to drown you, but to get you to realize who Jesus is? Verse 31 says this: "And Jesus immediately reached out his hand and took hold of him, saying, 'O you of little faith, why did you doubt?'" Here's the third statement I want us to remember. If Jesus is Lord, I will receive his help and correction. I want to take a pause here, because as I read this verse, and maybe as you read this verse, we could think and maybe ask the question, and why did Jesus rebuke Peter? He took the step of faith, right? He's the one that walked out on water. Why is Jesus asking this? Man, Peter, why did you doubt? I don't think that's necessarily fair to Peter, because I want us to catch this. Jesus, yes, he asked the question, but before that, he reaches down and picks him up. Jesus rescues before his rebuke. Now, Jesus, he still asks the question, "Hey, Peter, why did you doubt?" And so that word doubt that Jesus uses here, I think is going to be helpful for us, because in the Greek language, that word doubt basically means to be pulled in two different directions. And so what Jesus is not inferring that Peter is an unbeliever. I think in this moment we see Peter being a human being, right? Because he is in a tough situation. He is being pulled in two different directions. Like he knows, like he is being stretched. He's trying to figure out, trying to comprehend and process in his mind what he knows to be true about Jesus and what he sees. And that's just called being a human being. And it's okay to doubt. It is okay. That is a normal human being thing while trying to follow Jesus. But we also get to see Jesus' lordship on display. Jesus isn't trying to teach Peter a lesson by letting him drown for a little bit. He catches them before he gets to that point. And then he speaks to him directly. And Jesus is a Lord who pulls him out and then tells him the truth. And so if Jesus is Lord, I think we need to get rid of a few things. I think we need to get rid of the idea that Jesus is only someone who makes you feel good. Get rid of the idea that he never pushes back, that he never corrects, that he only validates who I am. That Jesus is not Lord if that's your Jesus. And I believe the real Jesus loves you too much to leave you where you are. And so I get it. And stepping out in faith is scary for me. Whenever we hear this voice from God saying, "Hey, go step out," the fear of failure is real. But here's the good news. It's that Jesus is in control of the wind and waves. It's that he's in control of the situation that you are walking through right now. And he is the one who picks you up. Verse 32, to finish out the story, it says this: "And when they got into the boat, the wind ceased. And those in the boat worshiped him, saying, 'Truly, you are the Son of God.'" Here's the last statement. If Jesus is Lord, I will worship him. I am convinced that the reason Jesus sent his disciples into that boat to cross the lake into the storm, for Jesus to walk on water, for them to witness this miracle, to go through that hard time, for Peter to walk and then to sink. I'm convinced the reason Jesus allows this to happen is for his disciples to say those words. That truly this is the Son of God. So the disciples, man, they're there, they're exhausted, they're soaking wet. They almost witness a friend drown. They fall on their faces and worship the person who is standing in front of them. But I want us to notice that the 11 they worshiped, they were witnesses to the miracle. But Peter, he experienced it. He walked on the water. So I want to make a distinction that there is a difference between knowing about the greatness of Jesus and having been in the water with him. There's a difference between being a fan of a football team and watching the game on the TV and actually being on the team and playing in that game. And so you want to know what happens whenever you stop being a nervous dad watching Jesus drive? You will end up on your knees because you have seen the greatness of our Lord work in your life. And we started out by saying that most of us often look at Jesus as a friend. And while he is a friend, I hope that friendship leads you to a place where the disciples are, to your knees, saying what the disciples have said, that you are the Son of God. I also want to point out something else. These disciples, man, Jesus was with them the entire time. He wasn't this distant person. Yeah, he may have been on the shore. He was with them. They had Jesus the entire time. He was in the storm with them. And I think whenever we are in a tough situation, it is so easy to literally cry, but also to cry out to Jesus and ask for help. It is so easy to do that. But if I can ask you this, when was the last time you wept because you had God? Not because you needed him. Not, God, hey, I'm in trouble, I need you right now, but you prayed the prayer and you were weeping because you were saying, God, I am yours and you are mine. Throughout this passage, I believe it's been leading to one question. Because we see the identity of Jesus. We see that first he walks out to them. Jesus speaks to them first. He reaches out first. And before this point, the disciples had never really worshiped Jesus. They had seen the miracles, they had witnessed all that, but they have never worshiped Jesus. So something changed. I think they saw a different version of Jesus. Yeah, they were walking around with him, having good conversation, seeing him do some crazy things. That was one aspect of Jesus, but they had never seen him rule over creation like he did. Their understanding of Jesus changed. So the question is not, is Jesus Lord? He is. The question is whether or not you will let him be Lord. The Lord over your decisions, the Lord over your future, your comfort zones, your storms. And when he is, it changes everything. Now, I want you to notice the peace that comes in this story. The peace that comes to the wind and the waves and to the hearts of the disciples whenever he steps into the boat. Everything changed. It says in Philippians chapter 3, verse 8, Paul writes to us and is challenging us, encouraging us to do this. Indeed, I count everything as loss because of the surpassing worth of knowing Christ Jesus, my Lord. For his sake, I have suffered the loss of all things and count them as rubbish in order that I may gain Christ. Luke, you can come on up here. Like I said at the beginning, this is the invitation to fully surrender to Jesus. And here's why. Because Jesus has the right to be Lord over your life because of who he is and what he has done. He went to the cross. He bore the weight of sin. He rose from the dead. And that is why Jesus is Lord is not just a slogan, but something that we can hang our life on. It's not just a confession. It's a confession to a person who actually conquered death. So I'm not asking you to follow a good teacher. I'm asking you to follow someone who can change everything about your life. Asking you to surrender to a king. And so whether you have been following Jesus for a year, your whole life, a couple months, or maybe you don't follow Jesus right now. And I believe that there are things in our life that we still need to give over to him. And I believe that we'll never give Jesus 100% of us until we reach heaven, but we can still strive to. And what is so beautiful is that whenever we come to the foot of the cross, we fall on our faces and we surrender to his lordship, and things start to change in our life.